There was a time when Kanye West wasn't just a musician, he was a cultural superpower, a man who reshaped hip-hop, fashion, design, and even the internet. Every album felt like a seismic event. Every idea, no matter how chaotic, somehow shifted the world around him. He was untouchable, until he wasn't. Behind the genius, behind the mythology, something darker had been growing for years. An ego without limits, a belief that he could say or do anything without consequences. And eventually, that mindset pushed him into territory so extreme and so openly hateful that even people who had defended him for decades finally stepped back. His downfall didn't come from one mistake. It came from a chain reaction of spirals. Documentary footage showing him belittling staff and raging off camera, public meltdowns, attacks on his own family, and the moment he aligned himself with one of the most violent ideologies in human history. He praised HTLR. He called himself a NZ. He doubled and tripled down until entire countries began banning him outright. One of the world's biggest brands cut ties within hours, and during his first ever Twitch stream, he was banned in minutes for hate speech and extremist gestures. This wasn't controversy, this was self-destruction, broadcast live. And the scariest part wasn't just what Kanye did, it was how long people kept trying to justify it, how long fans twisted themselves into knots trying to defend a man who seemed determined to burn down everything he built. So how do you go from one of the most influential creatives of the 21st century to a global pariah linked to hate symbols, extremist messaging, and a legacy collapsing in real time? That's the story we're diving into. The rise, the unraveling, and the catastrophic fall of Kanye West. And trust me, it gets worse than you remember. Before everything fell apart, before the scandals and the meltdowns and the symbols no one thought they'd ever see him wear, Kanye West was widely seen as one thing, a once-in-a-generation mind. Even people who didn't like him had to admit it. His influence was impossible to escape. From the moment he stepped into the industry, he broke every rule in front of him. He wasn't supposed to be a rapper. He wasn't supposed to be a superstar. He wasn't supposed to outsell the gangster rap era he was dropped into. But Kanye didn't care. He produced the sound of The Blueprint, then flipped the entire genre upside down with The College Dropout. Critics watched him go from the producer who raps to a cultural architect building whole new styles. Late Registration, Graduation, 808s, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Each one felt like its own era, not just an album. Entire generations of artists, from Drake to Travis Scott, built their sound on the ground he carved out. And it didn't stop at music. Kanye didn't just enter fashion, he bulldozed his way in. The Yeezy brand wasn't just successful, it was a global phenomenon, one that turned him into one of the wealthiest creatives on earth. Streetwear, sneakers, silhouettes. People copied him before they even realized they were copying him. Brands followed trends Kanye created years earlier. At his peak, he wasn't chasing the culture, he was the culture. People close to him said the same thing. When Kanye was focused, when he believed in something, it felt like watching lightning strike the same place over and over again. A level of innovation so intense that even his harshest critics couldn't deny it. But that kind of brilliance comes with a shadow, because when someone becomes this powerful, this idolized, and this convinced he can't be wrong, something dangerous starts to grow underneath the surface. And long before the world saw Kanye collapse publicly, the cracks were already forming. The pressure of fame, the obsession with control, the refusal to be questioned, all of it was quietly building into a storm no one was prepared for. And that storm would start with a loss so devastating that Kanye was never the same again. For years, people tried to pinpoint the moment Kanye West began slipping away from the person he once was. Some blamed fame, others blamed ego, but those closest to him say everything changed the day he lost the one person who grounded him, his mother, Donda West. Her death wasn't just a tragedy, it knew him well, say this was the moment the emotional foundation beneath him collapsed. Before Donda, Kanye was impulsive and outspoken, but he had structure. He had someone who could pull him back when the pressure of being Kanye West became overwhelming. After she was gone, no one could reach him the same way. And the world watched the first cracks form publicly. Months later, Kanye stormed the stage at the VMAs and interrupted Taylor Swift, a moment that instantly transformed him from a beloved creative genius into a polarizing figure overnight. For many, it was the first sign that something inside him had shifted. But what the public didn't see were the emotional swings happening privately, outbursts at friends, erratic decisions, long stretches without sleep, and a growing sense of paranoia that would follow him for years. He snapped at producers, clashed with collaborators, and oscillated between extreme confidence and emotional collapse. As his fame skyrocketed, those around him noticed a shift. Kanye wasn't just chasing success anymore, he was chasing control, absolute control, over his image, his art, his family, his legacy, everything. Documentary footage later exposed this transformation. Moments of him spiraling in meetings, berating teams, firing off impossible demands, refusing treatment, all while insisting he was perfectly fine. Scenes showed Kim Kardashian crying, Kris Jenner exhausted, and Kanye pushing harder, convinced the world should bend to him. Whether driven by grief, untreated emotional struggles, or the crushing weight of global fame, something in Kanye had changed, and it wasn't temporary. What had once been brilliance fueled by ambition was now brilliance overshadowed by instability, unpredictable, explosive, and impossible to ignore. And once Kanye realized controversy made him louder, he began treating it not as a warning sign, but as a strategy. As the cracks in Kanye's public persona deepened, he began embracing a new identity, one he proudly called the free thinker. At first, it sounded harmless, even admirable. Kanye presented it as a rebellion against groupthink, a refusal to be boxed in by industry expectations. But over time, that idea morphed into something far more volatile. The first major shock came when he appeared wearing the red political hat and visited Trump Tower with cameras waiting outside. For Kanye, it symbolized independence. But for millions of fans, especially black fans, it felt like a betrayal. Suddenly, he wasn't just pushing boundaries, he was shattering them. The backlash was immediate, but Kanye didn't retreat. He doubled down, claiming he was breaking the simulation, freeing himself from political labels, refusing to let society tell him who he could support. Then came the comment that shook people even more, saying that slavery sounded like a choice. It wasn't a misquote, it wasn't out of context. It was said on live television and it stunned the world. Fans who had spent years defending him found themselves forced into mental gymnastics just to make sense of the words coming out of his mouth. But behind the scenes, things were even more alarming. Footage surfaced later showing Kanye in unpredictable states, unmedicated, restless, and increasingly paranoid. At one moment, he'd be charming and visionary, and the next he'd explode at designers, architects, and employees who questioned him. He demanded total loyalty but rejected any form of guidance. His team followed him across continents, from Uganda to Switzerland to Los Angeles, watching him tear up architectural plans, scrap entire projects over tiny details, and insist that only he understood the future. The strain on his marriage was obvious. Documentary scenes showed Kim Kardashian in tears as Kanye spiraled. Kris Jenner became a target of shouting matches as Kanye accused her of trying to control him, while everyone around him begged him to slow down and get help. This era wasn't just controversial, it was a turning point. It marked the moment Kanye stopped listening to anyone but himself. The idea of free thinking became a shield, a justification for behavior that pushed him toward isolation and extremism. But as shocking as this chapter was, it was nothing compared to what came next, because soon, Kanye wouldn't just flirt with dangerous ideas, he would embrace them openly, and the world would watch a cultural icon cross a line no one believed he'd ever cross. There are moments in every downfall where the public stops arguing, stops defending, and simply watches in disbelief. For Kanye West, that moment came when he crossed a line so severe, so historically loaded, that even his most loyal supporters couldn't mentally twist it into anything redeemable. This wasn't free thinking anymore. This wasn't artistic rebellion. This was open admiration for one of the darkest ideologies in human history. And it changed everything. It started with anti-Semitic posts online. At first, people assumed it was another manic outburst, another episode he'd apologize for later, but he didn't walk it back. He escalated. He went on interviews praising HTLR. He publicly called himself a Nazi. He repeated stereotypes about Jewish people controlling money and media, rhetoric that has sparked violence and hatred for generations. And instead of reconsidering any of it, he leaned into the chaos, convinced that saying the most shocking thing imaginable somehow made him profound. Then came the music. Kanye announced a track literally titled He Ate You, and it wasn't satire, it wasn't commentary. The casting call asked for men comfortable wearing swastikas. The visuals included extremist-era imagery. The chorus echoed the salute, and according to multiple accounts, the video even included audio of HTLR himself at the end. This wasn't trolling, this wasn't edgelording, this was a deliberate alignment with symbols designed to terrorize entire communities. messaging that seemed crafted to provoke, wound, and generate outrage, and the consequences were immediate. Australia cancelled his visa, declaring they refused to import hate into their country. Cultural festivals received petitions demanding they pull his music, calling the song an insult to Holocaust survivors and victims. Entire governments began treating him like a security risk instead of a celebrity. But Kanye wasn't finished. He appeared wearing a massive diamond-encrusted pendant shaped like a swastika. Fans argued it might be a star, but the resemblance was unmistakable, and the message was already clear. Even his clothing lines featured cryptic codes like HH01, numbers many believed referenced extremist greetings. Whether intentional or not, the symbolism kept stacking up like a wall he refused to climb down from. And then came the Twitch stream, his first ever, where he lasted only minutes before getting banned. Not for music, not for profanity, but for hate speech targeting Jewish and LGBT+ communities, and for performing an extremist salute live on camera. 7 minutes. That's all it took for a multi-billion-dollar platform to shut him down. Even fans who had defended him for years were stunned. This wasn't a misunderstood metaphor. This wasn't mental illness alone. This was a man standing proudly beside an ideology the world swore never to normalize again. Critics called it the point of no return. Historians called it dangerous. Even people who once called him a genius said they had never been more ashamed to be associated with him. Because at this stage, Kanye wasn't just destroying his reputation, he was embracing symbols connected to genocide, mass death, and unspeakable suffering. And yet, despite the global backlash, the brand fallout, and the bans, Kanye kept insisting he was right. He framed it all as freedom, as if hate speech and extremist symbols were some sort of intellectual enlightenment rather than a spiral he could no longer hide. But the real collapse, the one that destroyed his empire, didn't come from what he said. It came from what those words cost him. Kanye always believed he was untouchable, and for a long time he was. No matter what controversy surrounded him, the money kept flowing, the brands kept calling, the world kept watching. He had convinced himself that his genius outweighed his behavior, that the rules simply didn't apply to him. But hate has a cost even Kanye couldn't escape. The moment he aligned himself with extremist ideology, global corporations sprinted in the opposite direction. Adidas, the partnership that helped turn Yeezy into a multi-billion-dollar empire, severed ties immediately. Overnight, Kanye lost the deal that had made him one of the wealthiest artists on the planet. Forbes removed him from the billionaire list within hours. Other companies, from fashion houses to retailers, followed the same pattern: shut the door, cut the contract, distance fast. For the first time in his career, Kanye's words didn't make him money, they destroyed it. But the financial collapse was only the surface. Behind the scenes, the empire had already been cracking for years. Former Yeezy employees described the workplace as chaotic, unstable, and dominated by a leader who refused criticism and frequently lashed out at his own staff. According to insiders, he tore up architectural plans in front of teams, scrapped months of design work over tiny disagreements, and expected total obedience even as projects fell apart around him. These weren't creative quirks, they were warning signs. And no one around him could stop the spiral. The documentary footage paints an even clearer picture. Teams followed him across continents: Uganda, Switzerland, Los Angeles, only to be met with rants, sudden cancellations, and emotional outbursts. Meetings with billionaires turned into lectures about destiny and prophecy. Massive business opportunities vanished because Kanye insisted on making everything a fight, a test of loyalty, or a spontaneous redesign at the last second. And then there was the toll on his family. Kim Kardashian, once the closest stabilizing force in his life, is shown crying in scenes where Kanye refuses treatment, lashes out at her mother, and accuses his own family of trying to control him. Kris Jenner, exhausted, becomes the target of heated arguments as Kanye insists he's perfectly fine, even while spiraling in front of the cameras. Meanwhile, the world outside those walls was turning against him faster than he could post the next rant. Festivals refused to book him. Brands no longer wanted his influence. Countries discussed banning him. And each time someone offered him a path back, an apology, a chance to clarify, a moment to reset, he rejected it with even more hostility. He had lost billions, credibility, opportunities, and the support of people who once saw him as a visionary. But the one thing he refused to lose was control. So when the money finally walked away, Kanye did the only thing he felt he had left. He doubled down on the music, even if the music would end up revealing just how far he had fallen. With the business world turning its back on him and his public image collapsing in real time, Kanye did what he always does when he feels cornered. He ran back to the studio, because for nearly 2 decades, the music was the one place where he could still prove everyone wrong, the one place where no scandal, no outburst, no controversy had ever been able to stop him. But this time, even the music couldn't save him. He resurfaced with titanium grills so extreme that people questioned whether they were even real. His interviews grew stranger, more disconnected, more performative. And as the world tried to make sense of his spiraling behavior, Kanye framed it all as reinvention, a new era, a new persona, a new truth. But behind the theatrics, his creativity sounded exhausted. He wasn't pushing boundaries anymore, he was chasing shock value. Then came Vultures. On the surface, Vultures 1 looked like a comeback. Despite boycotts and global criticism, the album surged to the top of the charts. Millions streamed it out of curiosity. Headlines declared that Kanye was still unstoppable. And for a brief moment, Kanye seemed to believe it too. He gloated online. He acted triumphant, as if all the hate, the bans, the lost endorsements meant nothing because, in his mind, the music still worked. But that victory didn't last, because Vultures 2 exposed the truth that fans didn't want to admit: the old Kanye really was gone. When the album finally dropped, after countless broken promises and delayed release dates, the reaction was brutal. Listeners called it unfinished, unfocused, sloppy. They said it sounded like a collection of half-formed ideas, demos stitched together rather than real songs. Critics described it as empty, repetitive, and driven more by shock than inspiration, and the harshest reactions came from the people who once worshipped him. Longtime fans said the album sounded like a man who had lost his hunger, his direction, and worst of all, his standards. Rumors even circulated that one verse might have been AI generated, a haunting metaphor for where his creativity had fallen. Whether true or not, the fact that people believed it showed just how disconnected he had become from the quality that once defined him. At the same time, Kanye's online presence sank even lower. Instead of focusing on the art, he posted explicit clips, fought with fans, and chased attention with increasingly desperate antics. He pushed out merch supporting Diddy, despite the accusations surrounding him, and ranted about freeing him as if the entire world were wrong and only Kanye understood the truth. He argued with random users, recycled old talking points, and behaved like a teenager discovering the internet for the first time. Commentators summed it up perfectly. At 47 years old, one of the greatest artists alive was now clip farming for attention. And for many fans, that was the breaking point. It wasn't the scandals, it wasn't the politics, it wasn't even the extremist imagery. It was the realization that the music, the thing that made all the chaos feel worth it, no longer sounded like something he cared about. The genius who once built worlds with every album was now uploading noise into the void, and the louder he screamed for relevance, the emptier it looked. Because when the art stops speaking for you, all that's left is the downfall. And the final blow wouldn't come from a corporation, a politician, or the media. It would come from the people who carried him the longest, the fans who finally walked away. Every downfall has a tipping point. Not the scandal, not the headline, not the controversy, but the moment the people who believed in you the longest finally stopped defending you. And for Kanye West, that moment was quiet. No dramatic announcement, no trending hashtag, just millions of individual fans reaching the same painful conclusion: he's not coming back. For years, they had forgiven everything: the rants, the outbursts, the political stunts, the contradictions, the chaos. Fans spent entire eras explaining Kanye to the world, insisting he was misunderstood, insisting he was a visionary, insisting he didn't mean what he said. They performed mental gymnastics so intense that even they couldn't keep up after a while. But the anti-Semitic language, the praise for Hitler, the NZ imagery, the attacks on multiple communities, the refusal to apologize, that was the moment something inside his fandom broke. One longtime fan described it perfectly. "I've been justifying his behavior since I was a kid. His albums raised me. But at some point, you look in the mirror and ask, why am I defending this?" Others admitted they felt embarrassed trying to protect him, that defending Kanye had become a full-time job filled with shame, excuses, and denial. They weren't explaining a misunderstood artist anymore. They were covering for a man who openly embraced hate. For some, the breaking point came when he wore the diamond-encrusted swastika-shaped pendant. For others, it was the Hell H Ye track. For many, it was watching him laugh while praising one of history's most infamous dictators. And for countless others, it wasn't any single moment. It was the slow realization that Kanye didn't even want to change. He wasn't asking for help. He wasn't reflecting. He wasn't reconsidering anything. He was doubling down. And in the documentary footage, the emotional weight becomes impossible to ignore. You see Kim Kardashian crying as he spirals, you see Kris Jenner exhausted, you see teams of people begging him to take treatment, only for him to insist he's perfectly fine. Fans watched all of this and realized they weren't just witnessing an artist collapse, they were watching families, friendships, and entire communities crumble around him. At some point, people stopped saying, he needs help, and started saying, he doesn't want it. The split within his fan base became undeniable. Some blamed mental health, others believed he was fully aware of what he was doing, but almost everyone agreed on one thing: this wasn't the Kanye they grew up with anymore, and the grieving began. People spoke about letting go of him the way you speak about losing someone you love, slowly, painfully, and reluctantly. A fan said it felt like mourning someone still alive, a sentiment echoed across social media. The man who once wrote the soundtrack to their lives had become someone they wouldn't want to be associated with at all. By the time Vultures 2 released, the truth was unavoidable. The magic was gone, the connection was gone, the trust was gone. Kanye hadn't just lost his audience, he had pushed them away. And the final stage of his downfall wasn't explosive or dramatic, it was silent, because nothing hits harder than realizing your hero doesn't exist anymore. And when your own fans finally walk away, there's no one left to blame but yourself. Kanye West's story isn't just a tale of talent and chaos, it's a warning, one about ego, power, and the dangerous illusion of invincibility. Because for nearly 2 decades, Kanye lived like the world revolved around him, and in many ways, it did. Every album shifted culture, every idea sparked a movement, every era redefined what music, fashion, and celebrity could be. But somewhere along the way, the genius who once reshaped entire genres became consumed by the belief that he could never be wrong. And that belief pulled him into a spiral so deep that even he couldn't climb out again. His mother's death fractured his foundation, fame magnified every flaw, emotional struggles clashed with an unchecked ego, the political stunts, the rants, the conspiracies, each one chipped away at the version of Kanye people believed in. But nothing destroyed him faster than the moment he aligned himself with hatred, the extremist imagery, the praise for HTLR, the anti-Semitic messaging. These were choices that scorched his entire legacy in a single blaze. The corporations left, the money evaporated, the music declined, but the real loss, the one that mattered most, and was the people. Fans who once defended him with everything they had finally walked away. Collaborators distanced themselves, entire countries banned him, and what remained was a man isolated by his own decisions, convinced he was fighting some grand philosophical battle when he was really just burning every bridge he ever built. Today, Kanye West stands as one of the most complicated figures in modern culture, a visionary who changed the world and a provocateur who pushed himself into the margins, a man capable of brilliance, but increasingly defined by the darkest chapters of his own making. And so the question lingers, heavier than the scandals, when an artist creates something extraordinary, but becomes someone unrecognizable, which version do we remember? The genius who gave us masterpieces, or the man who dismantled his own legacy in front of millions? There may never be a clear answer, but if Kanye's story teaches us anything, it's this: no amount of talent can save someone from themselves. And sometimes, the greatest downfall isn't caused by the world turning against you, it's caused by believing you're untouchable.